Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, with artists, writers, scientists, educators, activists, social scientists, government and nonprofit leaders. We speak with each, one to one. Few people are more involved in improving the lot of one of the most hidden segments of New York society, women who are doing time in prison or jail, or who were formerly incarcerated. At a time when the number of male inmates is on the rise nationally, the number of female inmates is increasing at an even higher rate. Why? What impact does the increased incarceration of women have on families and communities? And what can be done to keep these women out of prison and put them on the path to living productive lives? Georgia Lerner, Executive Director of the Women's Prison Association, grapples with these issues every day. And the mission of her 168-year-old organization has never been more daunting or worthwhile. Welcome.
Thank you.
The WPA was founded in 1845. What was its mission then, and has that changed over time?
Well, from the beginning, the agency had a mission that was twofold. First, to pay attention to the conditions of confinement for women who were locked up in New York City. In the early days, women were locked up with men, and the only people who were guarding them were men. So in the early days, the Women's Prison Association advocated so that women would be separated from men while they were locked up, and so that women would be matrons in police stations and could work to guard or serve as corrections officers in correctional facilities. So the fact that we have separate facilities for women now and that we have women working as corrections officers is largely due to the early work of the Women's Prison Association. And we continue to work in partnership with government and with other organizations, colleague agencies, to bring about change in government and other organizations and systems that have an impact on the women who are clients, so that they're more responsive and particularly gender responsive, so that our women have better experiences with those.
But basically, your mission is to support women who are either incarcerated or when they have gotten out.
And from the very beginning, we have always worked to help individual women to create better lives after some involvement with the criminal justice system. And today that mission has expanded to include some work to provide deterrence and to provide alternatives to incarceration, so that we're not always waiting until women have already been locked up.
Just trying to keep them out.
Trying to keep them out. And
I was reading something about your history, and I gathered that many of your WPA's early clients were Irish women immigrants who had trouble with that old demon rum or whatever it was. How would you describe the current clients in terms of the demographics of them?
It's interesting, when we look at our old logbooks, a lot of the women were Irish immigrants who were arrested because of intemperance. So, and today a lot of the women we see are arrested for drug-related charges. So again, they're arrested for intemperance in a way. A lot of the other charges that women are arrested for are for carrying small amounts of drugs, for forgery, and for property crimes, sometimes for stealing in order to pay for drugs, or sometimes stealing just maybe to get food for their families, or stealing diapers maybe for their children.
Are they overwhelmingly women of color?
Yes, they're overwhelmingly women of color. The other factors that tend to be common among our clients are that they are almost always very poor. More than half of our clients have not completed high school. More than half of our clients have never had a legal job. And more than 90% of our clients have been victims of some sort of physical abuse, usually sexual abuse. Usually it begins when they're children, and in almost all cases it has continued into adulthood.
How many clients do you serve a year?
About 1,500 now.
Now, how many women are incarcerated? Basically, your clients are people from New York State facilities or New York City facilities, somewhere in the state.
Correct.
How many women are incarcerated in New York State?
I think the number in New York State is around 5,000. In the state system, the state prison system, it's around 2,500. But when you add in all the jails, it's closer to 5,000.
Okay, okay. Now, I read that the number, as I said, that the number of women in prison or jail nationally has been increasing. What kind of numbers are we looking at there on a national level?
On a national level, if we look at prisons, we're looking at around 113,000. If we look at federal prisons and state prisons, and then if we add in the jails, which includes local jails where people are serving shorter sentences or awaiting trial, it's closer to 200,000.
Okay.
But then if we include people who are on parole or probation under some sort of criminal justice supervision, the number is over 1 million.
That's a lot.
Sure is.
I read somewhere that there are actually more white women in prison than women of color. Is that true?
That is true, but there's still a gross overrepresentation of women of color when you look at the percentages of people by ethnic group and race in the population.
Right. Why do you think, in terms of the increasing number of women who are incarcerated, why do you think that is?
Well, there has been a tremendous increase in the rate of women getting incarcerated over the last 30 years. It has leveled off a little bit in the last few years, which is encouraging. But our sentencing laws changed so that there's mandatory sentencing for certain drug charges, and we've become much more punitive. And I think that there are a lot of reasons for it. We've built all these prisons, and we have a lot of towns that actually rely on prisons for their economy. I mean, people need jobs, and if you build it, they will come in a way.
Right.
So I don't even know that it's a conscious desire to punish people or to fill prisons. It's just what we do, and we don't necessarily know that we have alternatives. If I speak to judges individually, or we speak to individual district attorneys or prosecutors, they would like to have other options, but sometimes they don't know that they have other alternatives, and often they have so many cases on their dockets that they're just doing whatever they can to clear their cases and get people sentenced and try to be efficient and take care of them.
Have the kinds of services that the WPA offers changed over the years, or in the 13 years that you have been there? Have they changed?
Sure. In the earlier years, we had more services that were specifically targeted to women with HIV. And HIV, hepatitis C, and other sexually transmitted diseases are much more prevalent among women with criminal justice involvement, largely because of the drug-related activity that a lot of our women are involved in and the methods of transmission. But a lot of that funding is no longer specifically earmarked for HIV. And we find that the needs that our clients have are more related to housing now. And so we don't have as much specific HIV-related housing funding, excuse me. And we have more preventive services now and more family-related services.
Okay. When you say preventive, for instance, to prevent them from going into the system, or?
To prevent them from going into the criminal justice system. And we have a large program that's foster care prevention, where we work with families who are at risk of their children being placed in foster care because of a mother's illegal drug use, and usually also because of mental illness. So we work with the families to address the mental illness, which is also a major risk factor for criminal justice involvement.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that. But first of all, tell me about, you do have some programs for women who are in prison.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about some of those.
We have a great program at Taconic and Bedford Hills Prison, where we work with women who are incarcerated, and they become educators of other prisoners, where they teach them about HIV, hepatitis C, sexually transmitted diseases, and other health-related issues. And they educate all incoming women who are going into the prison system in New York State about how to protect themselves, about how to be aware of health issues, and they also run support groups. So they're doing the health education for women who are coming in. And a lot of the women who are entering prison don't even know about their own bodies. So it's really very empowering for the women who are there to learn from other women who are in prison. And it's also a job for the women who are there, so they get paid. They go through an intensive training program, and they become mentors and really leaders among women who are in the prison. So we've been operating that program for a long time, but that program actually was started by prisoners. And we were brought in to be a partner in the community so that it could have funding and support. But it really was a program that was started by prisoners, and we are honored actually to be able to be the partner that helps it.
You also have a program called Women Care.
Yes. That's a program where we help women get matched with mentors for when they come out of prison or jail, so that when they come home, they have someone who's a helper in the community who helps them just kind of feel normal and make their way around the community. And sometimes it's just a person who's a voice of reason or someone who will go to Starbucks with them and help them feel okay when they are going in and figuring out how to order a cup of coffee in Starbucks for the first time. Or if they've been locked up for a long time, a person who will go through the turnstile for the first time so they can see how to use that Metro card, or show them how to fill up the Metro card so that they don't feel like they're so incapable, or like everything, like they have a big sign on their head that says that they've been institutionalized and they don't know what they're doing. Women tell us that they feel like they don't belong, and like there's like a big, like they're walking around with like a big neon sign on their foreheads that says that they've been out of circulation and that they really don't fit in, and like they've been in prison, and they really just want to feel normal, and everything feels like a mystery, and there's so many decisions to make. So if there's someone who's just a helping hand who wants them to be successful, it's really helpful, and a mentor can be that.
It seems to me, just from the TV shows that I have watched, that males who are incarcerated, it's easier for them to get support from outside. I mean, there always seem to be some women who are willing to marry them,
Indeed.
to bring them
Yes.
commissary money and support them and file their appeals for them. My sense is that women don't get that level of support.
It's true. I mean, if you go to a visiting room in a women's prison, it is not crowded. And I think that's because women are the ones who are taking children to visit men in prisons, and women are really the glue, and they're the ones who tend to hold families together and are the ones who organize the visits. And I think that often families kind of fall apart when women are removed from the family. And usually, if there are children involved, if a man goes to prison, his children are usually living with the mother. If a woman goes to prison, the children are not living with the father. They're maybe living with another relative, or they go into foster care.
Right. We're going to take a short break. Then we'll be back with more with Georgia Lerner, Executive Director of the Women's Prison Association, after this message. Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Georgia Lerner, Executive Director of the Women's Prison Association. Tell me about, you have a number of out of prison facilities. Tell me about some of them.
We have a program called Huntington House. It's a family reunification shelter in the East Village where women and children who have been separated because of incarceration are able to reunify if they're homeless, because if families are homeless, they can't get assistance to get sufficient size housing so that children would be released from foster care. So they're kind of caught. Like, a mother can't qualify for a large enough apartment with assistance if she doesn't have her children back, but foster care agencies won't release children if you don't have a big enough apartment. So the agency, my predecessors, really had great foresight, and they developed this program where the families could reunify in this building. So we've operated this program for a little more than 20 years, and hundreds of families have reunified there over the years. And
how many families at any particular time?
There are 28 families there at any time.
Okay.
And up to 50 children at a time, and we have after-school activities and a lot of support on site for the families. It's funded by the Department of Homeless Services, so there's a lot of pressure to have the families move out and into permanent housing. And there are tremendous challenges, of course, because the families are poor. The mothers have felony conviction histories. It's hard to find employment, earn a living wage.
It's hard to find an affordable apartment.
It's hard for anybody to find affordable housing in New York City, and that is really the major challenge, not just for our clients, but for many people in New York City. But that is the number one challenge for our clients. Another program that I'm especially excited about, it's a newer program at WPA, but I think it is probably the most exciting thing that's happening right now at WPA, because it's kind of the bringing together so much of what we've learned over the years, is a new program called Justice Home. It's an alternative to incarceration program where we are using the latest information about the evidence we have about what leads women to commit crime, where we use an evidence-based assessment if I'm the woman who's arrested, we do an assessment and figure out what the reasons are that I'm engaging in criminal behavior, use that information to figure out what I'm doing, go to the judge, the defense attorney, and figure out what the areas are that need to be addressed so that I'm less likely to commit crimes again. So maybe I'm doing drugs, but the reasons are because I have untreated past trauma and because I'm in an abusive relationship and because I have parental stress and antisocial relationships. And if I can agree to address those underlying issues, the chances that I will be engaged in future criminal conduct are reduced tremendously. In prison, there really aren't facilities to help me address those issues. And even if I go to drug treatment, I'll be sober, but those underlying issues aren't addressed.
Right.
So we have this new program that started where we will be able to work with a woman in her home environment. And so she won't become homeless. She won't have to go through a reentry process. Her children won't have to be moved to a different, they won't have to go to relatives.
Now, will she be living at that facility?
She'll be living at home.
She'll be living at her home.
She'll be living in her own home,
Okay.
and our staff will be working with her
I
at home.
see.
It's already started.
Okay.
And we'll be working with the court. She'll be at home. We'll be able to provide support to her family.
And that's going to...
It's already started, and it's an alternative to incarceration. And we really believe that by supporting her in her home environment and home community where she needs to be successful long term, we can get at the root causes of her criminal behavior and help to make her family safer and build on her strengths and help promote safety in the community. So we're really excited because it's based on what we've learned in our other work.
And that's going to be for up to 45 women.
Up to
correct?
45 women to start. We've just applied for funding to expand the program. So we hope it's something that can be replicated in communities where we don't necessarily have such great mass transportation. We think it's something that could be used in other communities as well.
You also have something called Sunflower House, which was described as an affordable, permanent, sober residence for employed former prisoners. They live there, they work, they pay rent, they maintain sobriety, they manage the house. And that has how many women there?
Well, actually, that's a program that we closed.
Oh, did you? Okay.
We did. In Sunflower House, I want to give credit to Rita Zimmer, who's at Housing Plus Solutions, because Rita Zimmer was our partner in starting that, and she has continued Sunflower House. And for us, it was a very good learning experience because it really informed the work that we want to do. We are looking for another building, probably in Brooklyn, because we are looking to expand on the housing that we do and to try to include that model of housing within what we do in a larger housing facility.
Right.
That was really a very instructive project that we did in partnership with Rita. So she has continued Sunflower House in Brooklyn. WPA is not a partner in it right now, but we did, there were 8 to 10 women living in Sunflower House. That was really a wonderful...
I would think there'd be a lot of demand for that kind of thing.
There is. One of the things that we would like to do, which was part of what the founders did, was they had a halfway house. It was the first halfway house for women anywhere, where women coming home from jail or prison could live there. And they were trained to, in the early days, they were trained to do laundry and housework and sewing. And we would like to be able to have housing for women who are just coming home, because safe housing is so important for women who are on their way home, transitioning back to the community. So we would like to be able to incorporate that in any new housing that we develop.
Who funds your work?
About 85% of our funding comes through government contracts. Most of those contracts are performance-based. So nobody's just handing us a contract and saying, we'll give you money and hope that you get results. For the most part, we are paid by results. And then about 15% of our funding comes from individual donors and foundations.
Okay. And you said housing, is housing really the most pressing need of your clients, would you say?
Housing and mental health treatment, but in terms of urgency, women will come to us with housing as the most urgent need, and financial and legal, a legal way to get financial support. Those are the top 2 things. So they need work and legal access to money. So they don't have a way to get a Metro card. They may have a job interview, but if they don't have a way to get a Metro card to get there, they get arrested trying to jump the turnstile. So, these little things that seem so mundane and so small really can get in the way of somebody taking the steps that they need to establish a stable life. So when someone comes home, we provide people with these hygiene kits and these basic welcome home kits where people need Metro cards. They need a bar of soap, they need shampoo, they need basic hygiene supplies. They need the things that you need to even be able to present yourself for a job interview. They need a towel, they need to know that they can get to the appointments that they have. And, a lot of people need mental health treatment, and a lot of, go ahead.
Do they get when they're in prison, because prison is supposed to be not just punishment, but also your rehabilitation, do they get any mental health treatment? Do they get any kind of education? There's probably some kind of drug, something aimed at substance abuse. Is there any rehabilitated? Are the prisons in New York providing rehabilitative services, the kinds of services these women need?
You know, the prisons are trying, but a lot of women go to jail or prison and it's the first time they're being assessed for their educational needs, their health needs. You shouldn't have to go to prison to be diagnosed with health, you know, with your health, education, and welfare needs. And prisons really were not created to address those needs. So a lot of women are getting adult basic education and GED level education, but they're not getting college level education. And in terms of protecting or, you know, being a strength guarding against future criminal, against recidivism, higher education beyond high school is really the strength that helps to prevent women from having future criminal involvement. Mm-hmm. Women will get mental health care in prison, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't mean that they'll get continued care when they get out, and it's not necessarily at the level and of the quality that they need. They have a lot of trouble getting and keeping staff in prisons to provide mental health care. So it's really kind of emergency and to keep the peace inside.
Do women who have been in prison and now out have a hard time forming healthy relationships with male partners than, say, former male inmates have in establishing healthy relationships with female partners?
Well, relationship dysfunction is one of the major risks for men and for women that leads to involvement in the criminal justice system. So I think it is definitely an issue for both men and for women who have been involved in the criminal justice system. Mm-hmm. One difference is that when women get locked up, inside of prisons you do see that women really do seek to form constructive relationships with other women. And men, you do not see that in men's prisons. So it is much less conducive in a male correctional environment for men to form supportive relationships where women do that. So I think that I certainly see women forming supportive relationships with other women, not necessarily so much with men.
Yeah. You have degrees in health education and law. What brought you to this kind of work?
Really, a former boss suggested that I meet Ann Jacobs, my predecessor and mentor, really, from WPA. And I felt a connection with her and with the people at the agency. Not really so much the mission before I got there, but once I got there, and within a few months started asking myself kind of the big questions about why WPA does the work it does and what does it mean in the grand scheme of things, I really found that it was a place where it's renewing every day, and that every day I meet people and think about things in a different way, and every day the world gets a little bit bigger for me. And I find that I get to evolve, and if I show up with the right attitude, I really can help other people see that they have the opportunity to change their lives and to make the world a little bit bigger. So it just feels like this incredible opportunity, because it's just a place where people are trying to live their lives a little bit better every day.
What do you think, and we just have a couple minutes left, what do you think are the public's biggest misconceptions about women who are either in prison or who have been in prison?
I think they think that women who have been in the justice system are different than they are. And really, women who've been in prison or jail are just women who need a place to live and who need to have other people who care about them and who feel things in exactly the same way as every other human being. They have certainly had different circumstances and challenges than the person next to them, but inside they're people, and I think we want to try to separate ourselves from other people so that we don't have to care. But if we can just allow ourselves to recognize that, if I feel sad, it doesn't feel any different than how it feels when you feel sad. And if I have something I'm celebrating, it doesn't feel any different than when you're celebrating something. It's true for people who are having an experience that's different than what maybe the event is different, but the feeling is not different. Mm-hmm. And that really, as human beings, we're all connected. And there's always something that we can do to help another person, and that really there's nothing different about those people other than the circumstances that they find themselves in today.
Well, I think you've given us some interesting insights into this population that a lot of people don't know much about. We're out of time. I want to thank Georgia Lerner, Executive Director of the Women's Prison Association, for joining us today. For the City University of New York and One to One, I'm Sheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.